Let's go over some acrylic paint basics. What makes acrylic paint different than other kinds of paint, say watercolor or oil paint? Acrylic paint, like all paints, is a pigment with some sort of binder. And the binder in this case is a plastic polymer, which basically translates to glue. Now, what that means is that acrylic paint, unlike watercolor and oil paint, dries quickly, but once it is dry, it cannot be rehydrated or get wet once again. This means that it's really, really important that when you're putting acrylic paint down, it's going where you want it to go, that you're not getting it on your clothing, and that you're making sure that your brushes are submerged in water when you're not using them. Otherwise, you will become a paintbrush assassin, and we don't want to lose too many paintbrushes. What's really special about acrylic paint is that because it has this really bright saturated color, you can get some super flat graphic paint effects, almost like if you were doing graphic design. And at the same time, it can be mixed with different mediums to give a more fluid, watercolor-like effect, or glazed in the same way that you would do with oil painting. Acrylic paint also binds to a variety of surfaces, so you can use it on canvas, on paper, on concrete, on ceramic. It really takes to a lot of different materials, which makes it a very popular paint choice. Here are the supplies that you will need to get started with acrylic paint. You will need, of course, acrylic paint. You will need brushes. Make sure that you are using the brushes that have a green handle. Do not, and I repeat, do not use the brushes that have the blue handle, as those will be for watercolor. A palette knife, which is used for mixing your colors on your palette. Do not make a bad habit out of mixing your colors with a brush. Particularly for acrylic paint and oil paint, it is integral, it is necessary that you use a palette knife to mix your colors, especially at the beginning of a painting. A chipboard palette, a roll of blue tape, and some palette paper. And to get your palette set up, you are just going to take a piece of palette paper, line it up with your palette, and then take 4 little pieces of blue tape and either do it on the corners or on either side, but basically we just want to secure the paper to the palette. Lastly, a cup of water and some napkins to dry off your paintbrushes. When you are pouring paint onto your palette, make sure that you are lining it up on the long edge or the short edge of your palette paper of your rectangle. Do not start by putting paint in the middle because that doesn't give you any room to mix. So line it up on the edge and place your colors in the order that they would appear on the color wheel. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. Even if you're not using all of the colors, still have there be a method. Put your warm colors together, put your cool colors together. It's really going to make your life a lot easier when you're working on a long-term painting. If I'm using white and black, I make sure to put them on the opposite side of my other colors. And that's because I don't accidentally want some of my yellow to get into my white and then my whole white is ruined. Or I don't want any blue to get into my black and then my black is no longer as black as it should be. So keeping them separate from the other colors is also just good practice. Third thing is to please do not serve yourself too much acrylic paint. First of all, it dries really fast, so it'll just go to waste. And the second reason is that you probably need less than you think. So I will tell you if I think you're doing too little, but I would rather you be conservative over wasting paint. We are a community of artists, and these are our collective supplies and materials and beautiful studio space. And so particularly with painting, because it's a bit more messy, please take care of the brushes, putting them back where they belong, not leaving them in the sink, washing them well, putting your palettes away in your cubbies when you're not using them, placing the lids on top of the acrylic paint. If you spill something, clean it up. All of those little things really make a difference for one another and also for me as well. And lastly, if you ever have a question, please don't guess. Just always ask me if you're not sure about a particular protocol.